Effects don't have to be boring, they don't have to be standard. Effects can create melody, they can create drama, they can be the whole element of your track away from melody. So we're going to go in, we're going to, on the fly, we're going to take some samples, we're going to cut them up, we're going to use some stuff, we're going to be really creative. I'm going to show you exactly what we can do to create tension using the most basic effects. We're going to use delay in a way that creates rhythm and movement in your track without you even noticing. And we're going to show you exactly how special effects can be. So let's talk about how we can use effects to really add to our track, create dynamic moments, and really use it to actually be a main focus rather than just adding a few plate reverbs and everything for depth. Now to do this, I've just started this basic loop. This is it. It's not impressive, it's not really very good. Cool. I've just cut a little vocal up. So what I'm going to work on with is just kind of make that a little bit more of a rhythmical section, almost take away from the fact that it's a vocal and really kind of create something out of it. Okay, great. So we got that. You know, it's not that special. Let's pitch it down using this. Let's EQ it a little bit. Okay, cool. So let's add a little bit of a delay. The Echo Boy is really fantastic. Can't really suggest it highly enough. It gives you lots of emulations that you can click through. I use the Space Echo in pretty much all of my stuff. You can also saturate directly. So that's kind of nice. Bit more light. But let's really start layering this stuff up. So what I'm going to do is so now we've just got two layers of taking the mix out on that. The two delays are doing very similar things, to be honest. So let's move this little vocal around. Let's get rid of the fact, I don't really like that. Now let's really kind of sidechain that second little bit. You see, just moving things around, taking the mix out, already we've kind of got something that's a little bit more interesting. So that's kind of cool. So something that I also want to do then is something that I use quite a lot is this, where is it? Sugar Bytes Effect Trick. This is really cool. This is a great plugin to use if you're lazy or if you don't like cutting things up. So let's just have a listen to this on its own. Again, we got it back to the original, so let's add a... Right, and then what we're going to do actually, we're going to turn this back on. So now you can see we're kind of already starting something kind of interesting. Cool, that's nice. Let's add the other bit. Add a little bass line. Now let's move on to the kind of stab. That's something I just kind of made. Originally, as you can see, it was very kind of playing off the vocal, but since we've changed it a little bit, you know, it's moved on. So that's a bit dry, so a bit of reverb. Now something that's really... Now we're kind of going down that techno feel, which is all kind of strong housey, but like that stab, let's make it a little bit weirder. So something I like to do is, again, I'm reaching for the sound toys. These people should be sponsoring me, I swear. Let's go for it. So I'm going to add a bit of a auto filter. Now this is something that can add movement to your stuff instantly without you having to do much. You can then also tweak this. You can change the sound, you can change how many times it moves. Let's side chain it. That's kind of nice, turning it into bass, right? Right, so you can already see how we're kind of getting the effects going. This is two things I like to do. So, I mean, I'm just going to keep moving on. Let's maybe bring that one back. Cool. All right, so we're moving really nicely. Now, obviously, as time's going on, we're going to want to like work some build-ups into this. So let's like see how I would do that. So, okay, so we've got our reverb there, but I don't want to play with that because that's nice, that's settled, that's done. Let's start looking at some reverbs. So again, let's just have the mix all the way down. Say this was the build-up, we could just go, I pressed A there, by the way, just to get the automation down, if you didn't know that. And then we're just going to latch this. And essentially, like, we just start building our track up like that. Let's move that across, but we have to get rid of that automation. Obviously, I'm working a bit of a weird time signature here, but it's just... Cool. Let's do... So something I quite like to do with my effects is when I like something, I like to bounce it out, and also sometimes just to create ease, I do like to bounce things as well. So what I was going to do here is that's got, as you can hear, a really long reverb on it. Let's not do that. Let's bounce that in place. Let's call it verb, or whatever you want to call it. That will bounce the whole thing. For some reason, Logic doesn't drag out the whole thing, it just drags out the hit. So to actually hear all the effects, you have to drag it out. So now if we listen to that, and you know, that's great. That can also now be a build-up sound. So what we do is we press reverse, which is handily done there on my Logic, but you can do it wherever, obviously. And then that is now part of... So like, there you go, like, that's nice. It's got audio. You can now use this throughout your track as a build-up sound. It's instantly going to be in key. It's controllable. You can have it as much as you want or as little as you want, that kind of thing. I find that sometimes bouncing things out can make really good uses. It's almost like resampling what you've already done. So for example, one way that I used to make beds a lot was, let's bounce all this out together. Call it bed. This is also quite good for making little cuts and stuff like that. So let's listen to that on its own. So I kind of like that a bit. And then, so let's mute this. Let's go over to our bit with a kick. So that what's happened there is obviously the delay has created a sequence that I would never have done. So it's given me some rhythms which are nice. Let's see what it sounds like with a little bit of that. So I'm just going to take the top off that. So instantly we're starting to add some depth, and we're using that same effects and stuff that we've used before. So kind of everything has a similar tone. It's all nice. One thing that I would say is, if you're using plate reverbs and you're kind of new to it or new to EQing or whatever, a good thing to do would be to set up a bus, a bit like, again, if you were watching the bass one, you'll have seen there. So what I've done is I've now got something instantly set up, and every single verb is going to be the same, so they're all going to have the same kind of the same shape, essentially, the same EQ, all that kind of stuff, which is quite handy to make sure nothing really clashes, because they're all kind of in tone with each other. Hopefully that should work with that too. Again, that's just nice to use in parts. One thing I'm going to talk about actually now, obviously that's effects. That's something I do quite a lot, is I tend to get something how I want it and then start playing with the audio, resampling it in. Then once I've resampled those in, I then put more effects on that a little bit. That can help to make things that are a bit sort of like dry and clean, give it a bit more of a raw element if that's what you're looking for. It can also kind of like really give you ideas that you might not get. Like I would never have thought to put a vocal like that, like the bed. So using that is a good way to do it. It can take time. Obviously I've just messed around with it here, but it just is what it is. But one thing I want to go into really, to help workflow when it's coming to effects and processing, and something which I think is really important is, especially if you're a Logic user, I'm not sure about Ableton, this is really just for Logic I guess, is there's a great thing. So in the Logic thing you can go to preferences and then go to plugin manager, and what you can do is, say you use loads of third-party plugins like Waves or Sound Toys or whatever for your effects. And rather than having to click through all the time, what a good idea is to I've picked Dynamics. I don't know why I did, but I did. So what you then do is, you then find one that you want, and then you can just drag and drop it straight into here. So when I go to my channel, just get rid of that. So when I go to my channel, you can go to Dynamics, and you can see that I have everything that I use a lot, constantly really, is just straight in that folder. There's no messing around going to it. It's literally within a click and a drag. It's a lot simpler, and I think that's really important. That's all to do also with you can put delays, reverbs, auto filters, whatever you find yourself using a lot. I do really think that's really quite handy. Another thing is, when I'm talking about doing these buses for the reverbs, what can be quite good is to have those already set up. So when I go to load, say I went to load a project, don't think about any of this stuff here. So when my project loads, I've already got 4 buses set up with different things already there. So I've got my space designer, plate reverb, I've got another little lexicon plate thing that I don't actually use that much anymore. This should have a delay on it from Echo Boy or whoever, but just whatever I choose, and then I've got a little waves flanger. So I've instantly got those there, so I don't have to mess around and find my perfect sound or my perfect effect. Also, another easy thing, but maybe less effecty, is if you're making house, it's sometimes quite good to just have a little sampler with some MIDI with a kick, hat and snare, and you just drag and drop into there, and then instantly you've got a beat going. Then you can be a bit more creative, and you don't have to be fiddly and all that kind of thing. Again, going back to something I've said in another course, part of the course is, if you have those few kicks that you use, it could be good to have each one on a different thing, a different key here, so you can just flick between them and then pick which one works with the sample you're using, the vocal, bass line, whatever. But anyway, I would say that's really important. And then, so another thing, that's really it. I'd say when it comes to effects, don't be afraid to resample, re-effect, add loads of different effects on. Distortion, it can be a great way of adding saturation, like we've talked about, and then delays can really add to the rollingness of your track. I mean, I know someone, apart from the kick, they used to add a tiny bit of delay to everything to give it a bit of a natural movement. Not quite for me, but you never know, it might be for you, so why don't you try it out?